Over quarterback mechanics today. Sorry we missed out on last week and not being able to do the quarterback mechanics. I was actually in Kansas, went to go see the Kansas City Jacksonville game, which was definitely an experience. From LA, and it was freaking snowing the entire game. So definitely had to work through that a little bit here. I'm trying to make sure that my iPad doesn't make any noise, but it looks like I'm gonna have to kind of deal with it here. But yeah, guys, thanks for showing up. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe, everything like that. We're gonna be talking about the load today. I'm just uploading everything right now in terms of getting some examples. I want to get some examples of some of the best quarterbacks, right? And what they do within their load that I think makes it super effective. And that ends up being the biggest thing here. Let me make sure actually real quick. I think my audio is not good. All right, here we go. Can you guys hear me okay still? All right, good. Looks like we're good here. Got the audio fixed up. But yeah, the main thing that we want to be able to do is not mess ourselves up when we're going through the throwing. And I see so many people that make it so they put themselves in a position where it's just not going to be as effective of a throw because of that initial action, that initial load. And the more effective we could be at being able to take the ball back and really even load in the back foot. We're going to be talking about not only the upper body, what we want to do with the hands and with the wrists and things like that, but we also want to be talking about the lower body and how in that initial movement, we don't want to make it so we are putting ourselves in a position where all of our weight is immediately transferring forward and not able to create any type of rotation or anything that's going to help us in being able to throw the ball further. So that ends up being, I think, a critical part here in being able to have consistent mechanics is make it so we could get into a loading position that is very, very consistent and makes it so we can have the results end up being a lot more controllable there. So we're going to hop into the live stream here or we're going to go into it just in a second. Let me just go ahead and just transfer this over here just because I want to go ahead and just get started. There's one more that I wanted to add in, but we're not going to end up doing that just because it's taking a little bit too much time and getting sent over. I might be able to add it on at the end. But I have plenty of video already, so we should be fine in being able to go over some good examples. It looks like it's going to end up being in the super slow motion. I just don't want to have to try to edit and talk at the same time. But if you guys have any questions or anything like that, anything that stands out to you within your load, let me know. We'd be happy to be able to, answer any questions like that and make sure that it's as beneficial for you as possible. I do want to say I'm going to probably start making it so these are things that are basically accessible through Quarterback University. So we're going to probably get to a time where these live streams is either you can watch them live, right? You can be on at 12 o'clock on Fridays. And if you're not on at 12 o'clock on Fridays, then we're going to end up making it so you could rewatch it with Quarterback University subscriptions instead of, just being able to watch it on like YouTube and Facebook, stuff like that. Will probably make it so it ends up being, just like a unlisted video after that. So this is something that I just posted the other day where I'm just talking about, that loading position. And this is generally what I teach with the load, where you want to go back and, get that hand. And what we don't want to end up happening here is we don't want to have the elbow end up being a lot higher than the hand, right? That's like the general thing that I teach is we want to be able to keep a consistent hand elbow relationship, right? We don't want to have one a lot higher than the other, the elbow getting way high and then the hand kind of staying low. And we see that sometimes with athletes where they'll want to go and just immediately kind of get that elbow up, right, in their positioning, and it really makes it difficult to be able to have a consistent throw. I'm going to go through some throws here. These ones were all pretty good. I think this one was the example, right? So we can see here where that elbow ends up being higher than the hand. Let me control this a little better. And when that happens, what is typically going to end up happening, and this is what the main part of the video was or is you're going to end up dropping this elbow, right? Because when the elbow is high and the hand is low, then the first action we want to do after that is going to be driving the hand down or the elbow down and getting the hand up, right? And so we don't want, that doesn't want to be a main part of the throwing action. Okay. And, with that being said, and I'm always a big proponent. People always ask me, different questions about the throwing mechanics, right? When working with athletes, like, are you against the leg straightening out, or things with the load, or where do you step? Do you want that front toe open? Do you want the front toe closed? And I'm big on not going too much into the what it can't be and what it can be and what you have to do and blah blah blah, because I think everybody's going to be a little bit unique in their throwing action. And I say that because if we go and look at, we'll go and use Justin Fields as an example. Like, he's somebody who actually kind of gets his elbow a little high as he's going through, and obviously you get a couple of different views of Patrick Mahomes here, but he ends up getting his elbow pretty high as he's going through, right? Where his elbow is kind of above the ball there, but he's still able to maintain from that position, still getting up and over with that elbow, right? So, we want to try to avoid that elbow drop, but it's not one of those things where if that ends up happening that you can't be an effective quarterback, right? I do think that there is, opportunities to still be effective there. It just, what I see time and time again is that guys that end up getting themselves into this position are much more likely to not have good mechanics than to have good mechanics, right? And so I want to try to make it so for you guys, you're able to take this information and utilize it in a way that's going to be the most beneficial for you. And so there's some guys that might end up wanting to get that elbow, really high when they start. And, that's fine. I just say, if you do that, you got to be aware of how fast your hips are going, how the body distribution is, right? We have to understand the whole system and how it wants to be working together. Okay. And then another thing that I'm talking about here is, so we have the issue, or this is going more into the load. The other one is like the Dan Marino up and out, and I'll go into that as well. But typically what we see as another mistake is guys going too far back here, right? And that ends up also making a big issue when it comes to the release, where now the ball wants to come out much more on like the outside, right? We allow the ball to get really far away from us as it's releasing or coming out of our hand, where we want to be able to be pretty straight up and down, right? I don't have any examples of it going really far out to the side. But when we see here, like, see Aaron Rodgers, he's going straight back with the elbow, right? Straight back with the hand, and then coming right back up and through. And we can just see that makes it so there's not a lot of wasted motion going side to side. Okay, the best to our ability, what we want to be able to do is we want to make it so it's a backward action to a forward action, right? What rotates is going to be our wrist and our shoulder and things like that. We don't want to be doing a whole bunch of side to side action with the elbow, right? The elbow basically wants to just come right back. And when we look at Justin Fields, he does that, right? He goes right up, okay, and then he comes, right back over. So there's not very much of this type of action when we're seeing, that. We don't see a lot of side to side movement where the elbow is going here and then going all the way out around, because for every action there's going to be a reaction. Okay, that's just how the world works, right? Einstein's law. But that's also a lot of ways how the body works. Okay, because what you're doing is you're prepping the muscles. When you go and you're loading that pec, okay, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to then be able to come up over the top and be able to deliver the throw, okay? Or going to the side and be able to deliver the throw, or whatever the case may be. So when you get your elbow high, what then the response is now we want to come back and drop it low because we loaded the elbow high. Now the action after that's going to be to come up and low. So the better option is really to get the hand going, right? Get the hand and wrist going all the way up, right? We can see that here. He's just immediately going up and out, or up and through with the hand. And really that's a Dan Marino. Really, it actually was a lot. Yeah, I mean, Dan Marino, I think, was really the first one to really implement that a lot, was the up and out there's people that also said that Joe Namath was big on the up and out, and that was something that he really believed in, and Dan Marino then learned a lot from Joe Namath, and started implementing that. So I don't know exactly where that came in to play, but that action, in a lot of ways, I think it ends up being the most effective way to be able to throw the ball. Is just being able to, and that mentality too. It's just, let's get the ball up and out, right? So we can go here. We can see him. He's here, and he's immediately getting that hand up. And notice when he gets the hand up here, okay, and the elbow back, okay, the elbow is coming up, but really the elbow is going back, okay, and then in the hands above the elbow, right, the wrist is above the elbow. Now all the action as he's going through the throw is horizontal adduction, using the pec, using the wrist, making it so we're getting everything going towards the throw, and it's as in sync as we possibly can. Okay, and why I say that it's as in sync as we possibly can, and why that ends up being so important, is because there's so many people that I see, sending videos, stuff like that, that just get stuck in the load, right? See how effective this is? See how effective of a motion that is, right? If I were you and you're a quarterback, right, and you want to work on being able to improve as a quarterback, okay, the first thing that you need to work on is being able to be nice and smooth through this action, right? And however that ends up being what you do, right? And then even as a coach, you want to be able to help in making it so there's an understanding of consistency within the motion. Not everyone is going to have the same movements that they go through with the elbow, same movements that they go through with the wrist, how they utilize the lower body, things like that. But what we do want to be able to do, no matter what, as a coach, is get away from any ineffective movements, right? Any movements that are going to be excessive, not needed, and going to make the release longer, right? So we see this athlete here. Notice he's got a good action here, okay? But now this is all wasted movement, just going back behind the head, okay? Then from here, it's a clean finish, okay? But we want to get rid of this extra action. We can see a total difference between how smooth of an action we saw with Dan Marino in comparison to there being extra action there with this throw, right? And being able to lift the hand back up behind and then afterwards come through. So the more it ends up being like separated into chunks, right? Where it's like one part of the throw is the load, and then another part is driving the elbow through, things like that. So this one is an example. The elbow's way too far back, right? Elbow's way too far back behind. Okay, so now as we were coming through, we can see there's already a lot of shift into that front foot, into that front leg. Okay, and the arm is, and the elbow's way back behind. We can go back and let's check out to see like a Mahomes throw here. Okay, this is going to be a deeper throw, which will make it a little bit different, but we're going to probably be in about that spot, right? So these are similar spots. One, you can see how much further along Mahomes is with the wrist, so he's going to have a better position, better opportunity to throw the ball further because he's in a more effective wrist position sooner. So he's going to get more into the wrist, more into extension, right? More into internal rotation. All those things are going to be better utilized because you're getting into you're loading the wrist sooner, right? As you're going through the throw. Okay, so when you get the ball all the way around, now that the wrist is loaded, right? Once the wrist is loaded, now you can have more force into the actual flick. If you're going through and getting to that max kind of load position of the wrist or neutral position of the wrist, and then, releasing almost as you're getting there, you're not going to have as much overall control and ability to put as much on the ball as when you're able to get the wrist around sooner. So then you can get more control of the actual action. But again, we see that on the left, we're in a similar spot, right? We're balls in the same spot, and the difference is the body position, right? Where one, Mahomes, very much back on his back foot, where athlete on the right is very much forward on his right foot. Okay, so the sooner you end up, and this ends up going to the load as well, right? We're talking about the load. When we talk about the load, as much as I want to make it about the upper body, and I think the upper body is important, it a lot ends up being, what are we doing with the lower body? Because as soon as our lower body starts to rotate around, what we want to be able to do is be effective at getting the ball forward and through, right? So this is another example of, having a not bad upper body load, okay, but the lower body ends up not being able to get in the range of motion that we want to be able to get to. Okay. And this is, by the way, what we do when we go over the quarterback mechanics, right? When you guys send in videos and we're looking over and seeing, how can we improve your ability to throw the football? What we're looking at is details within the mechanics. We're not trying to make it so it's like, you end up having to make huge drastic changes in how you throw the ball, right? That's not going to be the most effective way for you to improve as a quarterback. If you're looking at your mechanics and seeing a lot of issues with what you're doing within your throw, okay, then what you want to be able to do is find small, subtle improvements and adjustments that can be made, right? And just do that over the different spans of the throw. Okay, because if you try to change everything within your throw, okay, if you try to change the load, if you try to change your lower body, if you try to change your wrist position, if you try to change your front arm, if you try to change your hips, right? If you try to change all these different things, then you end up not being able to change any of them, right? Because you're not able to make any connections with your brain from what's right, what's not right. Where am I in response to the other parts of my body? Okay. So in order to make the change, what you have to be able to do, and this is important, okay, what you have to be able to do is you have to connect a certain movement with a response. Okay, so if it's, let's say, get your wrist around sooner. Okay, if we can get your wrist around sooner, then we can flick the ball, sooner. So just working on that. Okay, getting the wrist around sooner so we can get the wrist flick sooner. Okay, and making it so that is a consistent action that we see every single time, or something that you could feel the difference between if you do it correctly or incorrectly, and then continue to get better at that, continue to get better at that, and work on that for, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if you need to take the full 14 days to really build a habit. Okay, they say that's about, how long it takes to be able to really get into a firm habit. But a lot of times, especially when it comes to movement, you can start to feel the differences pretty quickly, and start to be able to understand how can you correct it. And then you progress, right? Now we got the wrist flick down into better spot. Now we can, start working a little bit more on the, the elbow during the load, or the front arm position. And then same type of thing, we connect that. We keep the front shoulder closed. And then as we're getting into the wrist position, we're driving that front elbow through. Okay, and then working on that, getting better at that. And this is how, me personally, how I made improvements within really any types of my mechanics is, just making small connections and making those small relationships within the body. And once you could start to, again, get a better understanding of what is a feeling of when you're doing it correctly and incorrectly, and, staying very, very simple with the changes, that's how you're going to make the biggest difference over a 3-month period, 6-month period, right? We're in January right now. And I appreciate the guys that are on here watching and listening and trying to get better, because you have the opportunity to get better. But it's not going to happen if you, when you go out, are, for one, focus too much on throwing, 7-on-7 and, doing a bunch of drills during your, individual reps, right? Having to go and make a change to, I see people on Instagram where it's like, doing ladder drills, avoiding a lineman, right? Avoiding the rush, having to throw off to the side, having to throw on the run, having to do all these additional things. And it's not that that's not important, right? It has a time and place. Okay. But if you don't have good mechanics, right, and we're putting a lot of time and putting a lot of effort into, doing all these additional drills, that are just going to make it so, you're able to respond within a certain given situation. uh, it doesn't matter if you don't have the arm strength. It doesn't matter if you don't have the power. It doesn't matter if you don't have the consistency, right? That ends up being the biggest difference when it comes to quarterback play, is how well are you able to put a lot on the ball, right? And how well are you able to get the ball out of your hand quickly? And then how often are you able to replicate that time and time again? Okay, because what happens is, if you are, again, putting too much focus into the additional drills, kind of the extracurriculars, I could say, then what you're going to do is you're going to end up missing an opportunity to build consistency within your throwing motion, and distance within your throwing motion, and accuracy, and once you can get all those things down, then all the rest of it will come into play a lot easier. Okay, and so what you want to do, especially January, February, March, don't put such a big pressure, or such a big focus on 7-on-7, and getting a bunch of live reps against the defense. It should be much more on your technique and your mechanics, and making sure you're getting the small portions down within your throwing motion to help and make it so you can make significant change in this time period. And then once you get into March, now, later into March, now we could start getting more into, playing against defenses, and, having more of a response to things like that. And then be able to make adjustments from there. But if you're going and, spend 10 minutes working on your mechanics, and you spend, 90 minutes trying to work on, throwing against a defense, or doing a bunch of ladder drills, or throwing off balance, then for the most part, we're not going to be able to make a lot of great adjustments, right? There's people all the time that start the programs like, it looks like his mechanics are good until he gets into a game, and then he goes back to, his habits. And it's like, yeah, because you didn't really address the primary issues. You didn't really put the time into be able to, rewire your brain, restructure your patterning, set up the way that you end up throwing the football. And so in order to do that, it takes a little bit of time, right? It takes the commitment to saying, I want to be able to improve something like my load, right? And so this type of thing is going to make it so we can get a lot more improvement, okay, over a long period of time. Because, if we can get consistent video of you doing this type of stuff, right? You're you're at your local high school, you're at your local park, you're throwing the ball, you're trying to get your ball from 40 yards to 45, and 45 to 50. That's great. Now we can go and take a look at that, right? Because again, we can go back to what we had with Dan Marino, okay? Or here we could just even use Mahomes here. Okay, so he loads back, right? We're in a similar position. Even that load, look at the difference with the load. Okay, and I know some of you guys are probably watching this and thinking that you don't look like this, right? But I can guarantee you that when we really slowed it down, okay, because even when I watch guys all the time, live, this is why I video, because when you video, the video doesn't lie, the film doesn't lie, right? When you have a coach, your coach wants you to get better. I want guys to get better when I'm working with them, but I got rid of that whole concept, because when you start filming it, you really see how good of a coach are you, how well of a response are people actually getting. And so it doesn't look bad when you see this in live speed. Okay, but when it's slowed down, you see the inefficiencies, right? Where we can see with Mahomes, very clean, just going straight back. Okay, and these small differences, I'm telling you guys, it's small, it's subtle, it's small, but it's every time. And it's the ability to really make those improvements time and time again, right? So we can see how much extra movement we're getting here, right? As that hand's coming up, as that elbow's coming through. So if we look at the position that he's in, he's ready to throw the ball, right? Everything is set up for him to be able to release the ball, except for the ball, right? We're getting into a similar position here, or notice where Mahomes just does a great job of being able to create rotation through the hips, through the spine, right? Through the wrist, makes it so everything gets set up to be able to throw the ball, right? And now as he's turning, he's delivering the ball. Okay, so everything gets in sync right there, and he's able to have a lot of control, right? But what happens is when you're here, ball still, not into a position where you're going to be able to get into a good wrist flick, right? That ball should be more facing upwards. I mean, Mahomes is in a better position to really throw the ball deeper here. That's why he has so much arm strength, because he has so much external rotation capabilities, throwing a slant, and he's able to get that nose of the football all the way up like that. Just, phenomenal when it comes to that. And you don't need to have, that level of throwing ability, right? Like, like the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes throwing ability is not something that you need to be able to do. And the reality is, for a lot of you guys, it's going to be getting yourself to the next level, right? Whatever it is to get yourself to the next level. Don't get caught up in being NFL quarterback or Patrick Mahomes or whatever, Josh Allen, whatever the case may be, Kyler Murray, Drew Brees. It's not about that. It's about how can you today make it so you can build the correct habits, make it so you can take the correct actions, make it so you can best utilize your time, best utilize your opportunity to be able to improve to the best that you can today, right? And then let's do that same thing tomorrow, right? Same thing tomorrow. And if you look up after you do that for years and years and years and years, then you will be able to see the progress and then the improvements, and the opportunities will flow, right? If we're too caught up on being like somebody else instead of being the best version of us, then you're never going to be able to really fully reach your potential, right? Because you're caught up in trying to chase something else. It's not your destiny. It's not your, you're not going to be Patrick Mahomes, or else your name wouldn't be different, right? If your name was, if you're living the life Patrick Mahomes, then you're supposed to be Patrick Mahomes, right? And you're not supposed to be Morey Croson. You're not supposed to be Patrick Mahomes. You're not supposed to be Josh Allen. You're supposed to have your own life. You're supposed to have your own destiny. You're supposed to walk your own path. And so figure out how you can do that the best that you can, and the pieces will fall where the pieces will fall, right? Some guys will end up making it to the NFL, get long illustrious career, blah blah blah. Some people will make it to Division I, be able to do other things, right? There's a lot of different routes that you could take that are still going to end up being a successful opportunity for you, but it's going to start with the load. It's going to start with the finish. It's going to start with how we get the most out of today. All right. I thank you here, Martin. I'm taking a look at the messages here. Thanks for taking the time. Where kids are wanting to get into live work for 7-on-7. I know it's for patients. Yep, definitely. Yep. January, February. I'm working a ton with teams right now, and it's primarily just weights, right? Just weights. We're getting into the bare bones of the 40 start for speed work. Just working on a lot of the basics. And a lot of times you're still talking about the basics, when it comes to football in August, September, the basics are, and the fundamentals, and coaches that are on here know this, the fundamentals are what wins games, right? The teams that are able to week in and week out, just be able to execute in the fundamentals, right? Make it so the guys are in the right positions, are doing their jobs, are taking the right steps, are going the right way. Those are the teams that end up being able to win. It's the teams that have a hard time being consistent in getting to the right spots, running the right plays, not making the mistakes, not making the problems, the wrong steps, being in the wrong spot, running the wrong route, covering the wrong area, not covering the right guy. Those are the teams that end up struggling, right? And that ends up being the difference. Who can really operate on the fundamentals to the highest level, right? So the better you can master the fundamentals, I'm big on that, right? Because then you have more control when it comes into being able to perform, right? And the more you have an understanding of the ability to perform and what are going to be the necessary steps in order to be able to perform at the highest level, then the better you're set up to be able to prepare to be able to perform at the highest level. Okay. And that ends up being a big thing. So,
yeah, I didn't mean to get too much onto a rant here, but I do think that that should end up being positive stuff there. Okay, this is another thing that I see, right? Is that people, when they load and immediately fly open that front shoulder. Okay, and that's something we want to be patient with as well, right? We want to be patient with that front shoulder. Keep that front shoulder closed as long as you can, and get those hips going as fast as you can, right? We need to get those hips around. We need to be able to rotate through that lower body. Okay, but let's be calm and let's be patient with that upper body. So then when we come forward, we're able to drive that elbow through, drive that wrist through, right? We want to be fast with the wrist. We want to be fast with the hips. Okay, and again, let's make it so this is as clean as possible. Okay, so if we end up going, and I tell people this all the time, sometimes you have to take one step back to take 3 steps forward. Okay, and that's an important thing to be able to understand, because sometimes you're going to have to not throw the ball 100%, right? You're going to have to be okay with throwing the ball 50%, 60%. Okay, and just getting an understanding of the release, the load, the timing, how it all wants to work out, how we want the hips to go, how we want the spine to go, how we want the elbow to go, right? And how that's all going to be able to match up to be able to throw the ball with the most amount of force behind it, the power positions. Where do I have issues where I don't totally understand it? I have a ton of content on YouTube where you could be able to get the opportunity to understand it better. Okay, but you want to be able to understand, where are you off? Where do you have potential issues? So now we can go and be able to focus on the things that end up being the most important when it comes to improving your mechanics. So if we, see the hand come way back here, that front shoulder, fly out, right? Let's slow it down. This is somebody I would always try to tell, like, the ball does not, you don't need to throw it 100 miles an hour. Throw it, 50 or throw it at 30%, and send me over a few videos so we could see where does the breakdown happen, right? Because if you throw it at 100% like this, there's so many things that are breaking down. I don't know where it's happening. It could be happening at the lower body, it could be happening at the wrist, it could be happening with the front arm. There's too many things, right? It could be happening with that load and the ball getting too far back, right? There's so many different things. And so the more we can kind of slow it down and understand, where did that first break happen, right? Where's the weakest link? When did that chain start to come off? Okay, then we could fix that and then make improvements, right? Fix that and then make improvements. Like we talked about before, it's not going to be just going in and going in and being able to solve 7 issues at one time. It's solve one issue, move on to the next issue. Solve one issue, move on to the next issue. And that's the big thing whenever people join the program. That's like my biggest thing, is like, don't expect us to go in and when you send in the videos, I'm not going to go in and just be, super analytical and spend 30 minutes and breaking down every single part of your throw to make it so you have way too many things that you're thinking about, right? I could try to impress you with my, using different words and knowledge and angles and times and this and that and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, that doesn't go through your head, right? That's what I've learned over the period of time. At first, I had all the cool numbers when it came to understanding movement and processing movement and being able to help people in staying healthy and injury prevention. I had so many numbers. I love the numbers. I want to be able to understand the numbers more and more. But as I've connected with more of you guys on YouTube and Facebook and worked with more people, what I realize is yeah, the numbers are cool, but really it's more of a marketing thing than it is a thing that actually makes it so you get improvement, right? Because I can go into all the different things about your elbow extension and your speed of your hips and your hip rotation and what your hip rotation should be in comparison to a Patrick Mahomes or a great golfer or whatever the case may be. They have different ways you can kind of track it all. But that doesn't matter if it's like, okay, well, the next question ends up being, regardless, how do I get better, right? And now that ends up being the conversation now. So we can go into all this detail about the numbers and this and that and that, and it's like, how do you get better? How do I get better? And that ends up being the fundamentals, right? It is, how can I get better? How do I improve? So instead of being so caught up in the numbers, right, I've learned how to get very, very focused in how could I teach somebody to improve. how can I make it so it is as simple as possible to be able to make progress in your performance? And that wants to be your focus as well, right? How can you make it as simple as possible to be able to get progress, consistent progress in reasonable time, right? And that ends up being, there's a great Jim Rohn thing where he talks about that, right? You want to be able to make reasonable progress in or progress in reasonable time, right? How his example is how long should it take your kid to pass third grade? You know, should it take a year to pass third grade? Should it take 2 years? Should it take, you know, it should take a year, right? That's reasonable progress in you know, that year period of time. Okay. And so for you, what would be a reasonable amount of improvement from January 27th, 2023 to January 27th, 2024? Right? What are those improvements? What is going to take for you to be able to achieve those improvements? And then let's get into the actual plan of making that happen. Okay. Let's get the negotiations out of it. Let's make it so we have a plan. Let's make it so we have a set schedule of what's going to happen within a certain period of time. Okay. Because once we can start adding negotiations into, you know, oh, like I'll do, you know, this today and that tomorrow, I'll do twice as hard this time as I will that time. You know, you don't have time to be able to go twice as hard the next day, right? You can only get the most out of today. All right. So you want to be able to get the most out of today. Do the best that you can to get the most out of today. And make it so, you know, again, if you need to take a step back, slow down the load. Make it so you can really understand what your hand is doing, what the wrist is doing, what the elbow is doing, right? So then we can get away from any of those extra movements. The more you can make it so you can very consistently and efficiently get the ball up and out of your hands, the more effective you're going to be as a quarterback, the more effective you're going to be as an athlete in general. Okay, because you're going to be able to time and time again, you know, have a clear understanding of what it takes to be able to get the ball out of your hand, right? We see Mahomes, he can throw from a ton of different ranges. He has a ton of different arm slots, not because he practiced a ton of arm slots, not because he did a bunch of crazy drills, right? I can almost guarantee you a lot of this stuff he probably didn't start doing until he got into the NFL and realized, okay, I'm going to have to add in, you know, these different nuances. But before he got into being able to do all the crazy things that he did, he mastered his release. He mastered his load. He mastered how he's able to be balanced as he finishes onto that front leg, right? He got into the fundamentals and got great at those first and then built on top of that. That's just how it has to go. You can't build on top of an unstable foundation, right? If there's any construction people that are in here, you start with building a very stable and a very fundamentally sound base, right? And then from there, you can build a house, you know, building, whatever the case may be. But it starts with that firm, stable base. And it's the same thing as a quarterback, right? We got to be able to get the understanding of an efficient load, right? Let's not waste time getting our elbow up here, right? Let's not compartmentalize it. Let's not break it into, you know, I'm back here, then I'm coming forward and this and that and doing a whole bunch of things. Get the elbow, or get the hand and wrist around, right? Get the hand and wrist around, okay? And just be able to work on that, right? Just hand and wrist, just standing, hand and wrist, okay? You know, like I do that all the time with guys. Like, let's just work on just getting your hand and wrist around, right? Let's not overcomplicate it. Hand and wrist around, boom. Hand and wrist around. This is an older video, so I'm not doing as good of a job with my wrist around, okay? I would say I need to get that nose of football around quicker here. But the concept is here, right? Just working on hand and wrist around, okay? Then start getting the elbows into it, right? Start getting the step into it. Step and wrist around, step and wrist around. I haven't thrown the ball one time. I've gone through 50 reps in my head, but I'm able to step and get the wrist around now. Step and get the wrist around. Step and get the wrist around. Telling you guys, this is what I did with my mechanics. I wish I went and you can look up my old mechanics when I was in college. I have it on my highlight tape. I have a video on my highlight tape on my YouTube channel. You guys can check it out. It's terrible. It's freaking terrible. If you look at my mechanics then in comparison to now, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he had any success on, you know, I played college. I was playing California JUCO, right? And you know, junior college. So I was playing at a college level as a quarterback. I didn't want to be the quarterback, but I was forced into being the quarterback. But I had success, right? Mostly because I was a leader, right? Well, I understood the plays. I understand how to run the offense, and I just had a strong enough arm, right? At that point, because I was mostly playing receiver, at that point I was done. My arm was, you know, as it got towards the season, I wouldn't even practice, you know, for the first 2 days of the week. We played the game on Saturday. We'd have the, you know, Sunday, Monday kind of off. We'd practice again Tuesday, Wednesday. I wouldn't practice on either of those days, or I would, but I just wouldn't do any throwing. Because my arm was so dead, I couldn't handle it. And after throwing on the Saturday, and then Thursday I'd throw a little bit, you know, start to be able to get on time again with the receivers. Friday I'd try to be able to throw as much as I could, make it so I can get, you know, stay on time with the receivers. Saturday play, do the next thing again, right? Just to give you an idea of how bad my mechanics were, right? Like I shouldn't have throw the ball, you know, 150 times, 200 times, right? Going through warm up, all the different things that you do within an actual game day. And then be sore for 3 days after, right? Like you should be able to do that, no problem. You should be able to throw 200 balls a day, no issue, right? And that's why within the throw program, I have you guys throwing a good amount, because you need to be able to build up that arm strength in order to make it so you can consistently, you know, have the ability to, one, build the mechanics, but two, be able to make it so you can have the strength necessary to, you know, endure a season, endure an off season, right? A little bit of soreness in, you know, January through March is not bad to be able to have in the arm, right? You don't want to have arm soreness in August, September, right? When we're really going in the summer. That's when you want to be, if you have competition, that's when you want to be able to really push. That's when you want to be able to be at your best. That's when your body wants to be able to respond to that soreness, respond to that work that you put in now in a way that makes it so now you have everything you need built up to be able to succeed. So if you need to push yourself through a little bit of soreness, now is the time to do it, right? Now is the time to be able to really stress the body a little bit more. Okay. You also have a little bit more time to, you know, relax and recover and things like that. You got to take care of your nutrition, make sure you're eating plenty of protein, make sure you're getting the sleep, make sure you're getting the water necessary to be able to succeed. But also, you know, put yourself in a position where you are getting sore, you are getting uncomfortable, you are putting yourself in a, you know, spot where you're allowing your body to grow, right? If you're not getting sore, if you're not getting uncomfortable, if you're not putting yourself in a spot where you know, you're able or having to respond, having to get yourself over obstacles, having to get yourself to be able to push through things, then I would challenge you to be able to do that. Find ways to make it so you can set yourself up with having more obstacles, having more things to be able to, you know, get yourself over, right? That's one of the things that I recently, you know, started doing, talking to some of my friends about, where it's like, you know, look at your complaints. What are your complaints? What do you wake up and complain about? What are your biggest issues? And how can we upgrade those complaints? How can we take those complaints to the next level? Are we complaining about things that are just holding us down, keeping us average, keeping us, you know, just like everybody else? How can we upgrade what it is that we're complaining about to a level that is on a, you know, a higher level? Okay. You know, if you're complaining about being tired, complaining about not having enough energy, if you're complaining about coaches, if you're complaining about players, if you're complaining about, you know, the situation, this has been the same complaints year in, year out, blah, blah, blah. You need to upgrade your complaints. You need to figure out how to make it so your complaints are bigger than that, right? Complain about things that are more important, right? What is it that how can you make it so the complaints around you financially, you know, whatever it could be within the nutrition, whatever it can be within your rest, whatever it can be within, you know, the surroundings around you, upgrade those, figure out how to upgrade those, figure out how to be able to come at it in a different way, re-strategize, reorganize to make it so you're able to get the most out of, again, your day, your life, your current situation, right? If you're looking at it from the same lens all the time, you're just never going to be able to progress. So, yeah, a lot of things we went over today. Thank you guys for showing up. Thanks you guys for watching. I appreciate the comments, right? Appreciate you, David. Appreciate you, Martin, sending over some messages. Sending over some comments. Those are always great. Keep watching the stuff. Keep watching the the lives. We're going to be doing these every week. Keep on posting stuff on YouTube. We'll keep on doing stuff within the keep on helping out guys within the program. So if you guys are interested in that, we have that all in the link in the description down below. But yeah, we'll see you guys next Friday, 12 o'clock, same time, same place, same energy, same action. Let's get to it. Have a great week.